So recently, Luke Belmar did a talk with Simon Squibb, and he presented this framework for how to make money forever. And I thought it was a phenomenal talk. I'll link it below. But what I wanted to do is actually apply this model to the coaching space and get a little bit more granular to identify the tactics, strategies, and actions that you can actually take with this model and apply it to your business and continue to grow. Okay, so I want to be straight to the point and as direct as possible. So let's go ahead and start getting into the meat and potatoes of this model. Because again, it's one thing to look at the model from a general standpoint and it sounds well and good, but I like information when it gives me tangible, actionable items. And being that there's so many different industries or spaces, I want to show you what you can do with this here. Okay, so his model is really built on this triangular framework, okay? And the first pillar, he talks about being in an industry or being in a space that is in high demand. And he breaks it down into really two categories. And this is what I definitely want to talk about here, okay? Because the first category is about trends. Now, most people become coaches, okay, because they want to be a resource for themselves. They want to help their community, their family and friends, and they really make an impact. Okay, this is why we become coaches. It's not to hop on a trend or really, or at least most people anyway. It's not necessarily for like a quick money grab or fast cash necessarily, right? It's really aligned with our purpose. Okay, so when he talks about trends, and I say trends in the coaching space, it's probably hard for me to identify, any particular type of niche that would identify as a trend. More often than not, when it comes to helping somebody or working with somebody, we're dealing with problems that have stood the test of time, that are present now and probably will be for a while. I want to hop over to the other category because this is what's really important: narratives. This has to do with identifying your service as something that to some degree is almost future proof. And it's hard to say with the advancement of AI and technology if anything is future-proof nowadays, but when it comes to that human-to-human connection, I do believe, at least for my foreseeable future, that there's always going to be something to be said about having that human-to-human interaction. Okay, no matter how many apps or in-home this or that. I mean, a lot of these technologies that come, especially in like the health and fitness space, they falter. They go under. Because I think that human-to-human element is going to be present. It's always going to need. It's necessary now. It's necessary now. I think it's going to be necessary in the future. Now, to get a little more granular with this, the biggest problem that most people have in the coaching space when it comes to doing something that's like high demand, especially when they're trying to grow their business, is they don't actually understand specifically what problem they are solving. And I as inclined as I am to talk about like your niching, and this will come up in a little bit, I have another video that I go way deeper into that. So if you want to learn more about how to identify your own niche, I would recommend checking that out. But for now, I can tell you when it comes to identifying the narrative, the future proofing, the actual place of and in your business, okay, you need to understand your market. Okay, what I mean by market is, where are you? Are you in health, wealth, or relationships? These are the markets. It's not art. It's not entertainment. It's not food. These are the markets that people are investing in that allow a coach to move into those higher financial figures. Okay, I'm often saying something like $10,000 a month as your first staple. And for anybody that's listened to my other videos, I don't necessarily love applying like numerical figures to things. I prefer predictability in our business. But anyways, a whole other rabbit hole. Now, you need to understand your market. Are you solving a problem in health? Are you solving a problem in wealth? And are you solving a problem in relationships? Okay. When people bounce around too much, your service is like it's high demand in too many different places. Okay. You want to be specific to one of those markets. Okay. And then it goes a layer deeper when it comes to understanding your sub-market, right? So I said health, wealth, and relationships. If I were to say I'm a health coach, it's too broad. It's too broad. Maybe I'm dealing with emotional health, physical health, spiritual health, just general well-being, okay? Sleeping better. There's all different types of sub-markets. And again, in my other video about niching, I get into all these, okay? Wealth, similarly, there's sub-markets within that, and relationships. There's dating, there's marriage, family, parenting. So there's all these different sub-markets, and if you want to be the in demand, you need to know where they are or where you are. So his next stable is an interesting one. It's being the best. Being the best. And this is kind of funny because I'm looking at it in two ways. There's being the best objectively, and there's being the best subjectively. And here's the funny thing about health, right? Again, particularly in like the coaching space, is like, how do you objectively identify what health might mean to somebody? Okay, sure, you could say like being free of disease. Clearly, that would count as like an objective truth. But then, we start to go further in that as far as like maybe the types of food we're eating, drinking, mind versus body. There's all these different things to look at here. Okay, and this isn't the video for that. But when it comes to being the best, you're very much looking at things from a subjective standpoint. Now, when I say subjective, I mean how you are the best in relation to someone else. Okay, subjectively, you are the best to someone else because you have put yourself out there in a way, you have presented your service, yourself, your expertise in a way that makes somebody think this is for me. And oftentimes this goes beyond just your service. It's very much about who you are and how relatable you are to people. And I say that because, you can have somebody in, I don't know, the fitness space who might have a really great product, but maybe they're kind of a douchebag, or maybe they're not very relatable. Maybe you have like, and again, this is kind of generalizing, but maybe you're like 20 years old telling 45-year-olds like how life is supposed to be. And you don't necessarily have a lot of clout in that regard. Okay, so the point that I'm trying to make here is that according to, this making money forever model, what does it mean to be the best? And, Luke goes on to describe it as, variables, variable factors and fixed factors. And I don't necessarily think that applies because those are like objective dynamics. I want you to take a look at like who am I the best for? This still goes back to the niching to some degree, but you do need to understand, who your audience could or should be. Who are you the best for? Who should you be the best for? I would love to get into like different examples here. One student of mine a while back, comes to mind. And when we first started working together, he wanted to like work with doctors. And I'm like, well, what authority do you have with doctors? Do you have like a medical degree? Have you been doing this for a while? How passionate or interested are you? And it really just came down to money. I'm like, well, you know what? What's your why? What's your why? And we started to dig in further to it. He's like, well, you know what? Actually, I think I'd be better off with, high-performing entrepreneurs. Again, that's kind of like a general thing, and I don't want to get into specifics here, but it was a lot more credible of an avenue, of a route than necessarily somewhere that he necessarily shouldn't have been. Okay. And again, you can make a case for this or that, but the point that I'm trying to make is that when it comes to being the best, okay, that's subjective. That's subjective, and that's okay because in the coaching space, that's a huge factor. I don't want to say it's the factor; it's the thing that matters most, right? Because you clearly want to have a great product, to some degree, but it's subjective. Even like a great product can be subjective. So just keep that in mind. If like you're thinking to yourself, how can I be the best? It's not about being the best objectively; it's about being the best subjectively. So the last tentpole in Luke's framework is about being irreplaceable, and this to me is a big one. I love this one because the first thing that comes to mind here is accountability. Accountability. If you're in the coaching space, I think it's crucial to understand that you can help a lot of people. I mean, so I know some people are suffering from imposter syndrome or whatnot, and maybe I'm not necessarily speaking to that right now, but you can help a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And one of the best things that you can do to become irreplaceable is creating an accountability model within your work. And that's really the thing that Luke is presenting here. It's not necessarily so much of being irreplaceable as a human being, and that's its own separate conversation. But he does talk about having like an irreplaceable product to some degree. And again, there's so many different ways that we would or could look at that. But I think of accountability as far as like, hey, do you have this built into your business model? Some people are building out like memberships or courses or training programs, and there's really not a lot of accountability other than like, I don't know, I guess I would say kind of like maybe a check-in, if you will, and I think that's okay. But when you give people tasks and assignments that puts the work back on them, they feel more empowered. They build skills, and they start to recognize that this work is also on my end as well. And I see that from a lot of coaches or practitioners where they're doing too much to take on the internal work of the client themselves. So when it comes to having an irreplaceable product, I mean, just being able to solve someone's problem already makes you irreplaceable. But if you can take that model, take that concept of accountability, and put it into a different format, or something that's like really like that has some longevity to it, you can make a lot of money. You can make a lot of money, and you can be with people for a long time. And you know, there's another marketing vernacular that comes to mind here. It's customer lifetime value. This has to do with the amount of financial transaction that will happen with your client over the period of their lifetime. And you can extend this with accountability models. All right, hope this video is helpful. I really want you to take some of these concepts, apply it to your business, see how it works out for you. Once again, my name is Jaron Baruman. I'll see you on the next one.